Hi there. Thanks for joining me on this edition of the weekly roundup. That's right. It's the end of the week, of the working week, rather. And while we're all working from home and trying to multitask, we are bringing you the latest trending news that has made headlines over the week. And of course, I'm not alone in this. My partner in crime is none other than Nordin Abdullah, our crisis management analyst who weighs in from that perspective and more. Nordin, good to see you once again on this program. How's it going?
It's good. It's excellent to be here. And of course, it's great to see you working from home, Jesse.
Yes. But so it's easier, as in it's less stressful about going out and the exposure. But then again, the multitasking that goes on. So salute to all working parents, all those working people who are at home who still have to care and nurture for others in the house. It is not easy. It's definitely a balancing act. But that is life, and let's get straight into it. So, Nordin, this week, of course, on Tuesday, we started the week. It was an auspicious day for Muslims celebrating Hari Raya Idul Adha. However, it seems that while we are trying to get some semblance of normalcy, we seem to forget our SOPs, Nordin.
Yes, and I think one thing is it's normal for Muslims to go to the mosque on Hari Raya Haji, especially. It's one of the difficult things is to ensure that you continue to follow SOPs. While we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, we still need to realize we've still got a ways to go. And I think we saw some of the video that came out of certain places where there was large groups that were not part of in a sense, not part of the plan. So I think one of the things that I always tell people, if you think that it could be dangerous, err on the side of caution. Yes, it's important to complete your prayers. It's important for all religions to complete your religious obligations. But at the same time, this is about survival. And in a crisis, we need to survive first and thrive later.
That's right. On the side of caution, I think that is a liner we must keep in mind, even as we go into the weekend. We still know on the back, of the fact that cases are still high, definitely not down to a number that we can feel safe enough. And so the SOPs are here to stay, ladies and gentlemen, and we really need to do better while we do kita jaga kita. I know it's a lot on the plate for everyone in so many different ways right now, but it is what it is, as I was told once. And let's move on from that, Nordin. While we are battling COVID-19, we also know that all adults in Malaysia are expected to be fully vaccinated by October this year. We are well in the third quarter of the year already on the back of the National Immunization Program as well as the National Recovery Plan. How are we doing in terms of that milestone and hitting that benchmark?
Well, Jesse, I think we're well on the way, and I think October is a fair target. When we look at the earlier iterations of the plan, it was towards the end of the year, December. So the fact that we've been able to learn how to do the job of getting more people vaccinated quickly, then we can bring the plan forward. And that's one thing I think we should congratulate the Minister, Khairi Jamaluddin, for getting his team and getting the literally hundreds and thousands of people that it takes to get this job done. Not just the doctors, not just the nurses, but the volunteers also in the PPV centers.
That's right. We're going to talk a little bit about the meaning of frontliners now and actually acknowledging that there are many other people also who sort of fall in that category, especially e-hailing riders. That piece of news as well was shared this week. We just want to go back to what we're talking about. Now, what the government has done is so far to date, they've booked more than 76.1 million doses of vaccine. Out of this entire percentage, 70% are Pfizer, then there's Sinovac, AstraZeneca, and CanSino. So we know that all of the vaccines are sort of, being rolled out or either being sold. We'll come to that later as well. But this week, this headline, of course, was, eye-catching. Malaysia wants to fully vaccinate 100% of the adult population. That means that 100% of the adult population here in Selangor and in Kuala Lumpur will be given at least one dose of vaccine by August. This is under the Operation Surge capacity. So if you hear that word again, you know that it's part of this plan. Sarawak is expected to hit this target by the end of August. So things are moving swiftly, and we've booked 76 million doses, as I mentioned. 20 million doses we have already received. So a lot more is coming. Quick reminder, if you haven't registered on MySejahtera app, please do that. You can also add a dependent, parent, a loved one, someone who may not have the MySejahtera app. Coming to what you were saying earlier, names of e-hailing drivers, P-hailing riders also have been collected this week, Nordin, for vaccination purposes. We did discuss a little bit about this before the show, and I was going to sort of allude towards the side of saying that I felt that this was perhaps an afterthought, because e-hailing drivers, when we entered the MCO, they were sort of the backup plan for so many people.
Exactly. And I think when we look at, many of those e-hailing riders have actually already got their vaccine. And I think this is what the government is doing, saying is like, this is now a priority group that needs to be hit that 100% target faster than the 100% target of the general population. Of course, they are a frontliner. They are meeting a lot of people. They're dealing with a lot of people on a day-to-day basis. When we wind back the clock and look when we started the vaccination program, doctors, nurses, and police and armed forces were on the front lines. They needed to go first. So now we're in the phase of getting this group of people done as a priority, because the other priority groups have already been finished. So I think it's a good move by the government. We are dealing with a crisis as it unfolds, and we're dealing with the resources that we have.
Okay, so the plan right now is, for example, on Grab, 100,000 e-hailing drivers, 50,000 P-hailing drivers will be on that list. A vaccination process for taxi or e-hailing riders, about 40,000 there, and 11,000 P-hailing drivers. All right. So overall, basically, this is still in line with the National Recovery Plan to hit that milestone of herd immunity. The Prime Minister this week as well came out to reiterate and back that statement up. He says he is most interested right now for us to reach herd immunity. Having said that, we've got the National Recovery Plan, Nordin. How flexible is this? Because this week as well, the government came out to make a statement. They say they're making changes to SOPs under phase 1 and phase 2 of the National Recovery Plan.
Exactly. And I think we're in a crisis, and any plan has to be flexible. If you don't create a plan that is flexible or has the ability to deal with a fluid situation in a crisis, the plan will actually fail. So the fact that the government is able to shift its priorities and shift its focus and be able to move the focus, and we see now a huge success story on the vaccination process. We're hitting the target of vaccination at 10%. We've hit it. So now the problem with the first phase of it is we were going to go into the second phase after we got the cases down under 4,000. We are well above that now. We're like 3 times that amount. So we need to adjust the plan. Can we adjust the plan safely is the question. So that's where we go to the Ministry of Health. That's where we speak with the Director General, Tan Sri Hisham Noor, and say, okay, what is safe? And then we realize that there are certain states in Malaysia that are priorities in terms of getting vaccinated, and it's the Klang Valley. So we focus on that. Where other states where the numbers aren't as high, the threat is not as high. So you can be more flexible there. So I think we're starting to see the plan evolve based on the facts, based on the data that's available, which is very pragmatic.
Right. That's right. Well, just to add, on the back of some changes to the SOPs, a fresh market now from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., so extended hours daily, and other markets extended from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., depending on where you are within the affected states. Also, the Deputy Prime Minister has said this week that they're going to increase attendance at government offices by 40%, and also accounting services to operate at 60% capacity. A little bit more on sectors that are crying to be opened up, and also what the government is doing about that. But here, let's look at our vaccination rate right now. We are surpassing 400,000 shots daily. Close to 300,000 people have already received the first dose, and the remaining are going to receive their second dose, or rather, as we speak, they are receiving their second dose. So our aim overall, also this week, we know is to raise the national vaccination rate, and the JKJAV, or the Special Committee on Ensuring Access to COVID-19 Supply, reported this week, Nordin, that more than 10 million individuals have received at least one dose. Why these numbers? What does it mean? It shows us that, as you've mentioned, we are well on our way. We have a world average vaccination rate as well, or rather slightly above the world average. So all good key indicators. But you mentioned something earlier. You said a chance of survival.
Yes, and that's really the key factor here. The vaccines don't protect you from getting COVID-19. They protect you in a way that you are able to survive if you do get it. So this is about survival. This is the strategy that we're implementing now. So in this crisis, the crisis is how to keep as many people alive with the resources that we have, whether it's the medical resources, whether it's the vaccine resources that we have. So again, we need to continue to remind people to come back to the SOP, because that's the thing that you can do without resources. You just wear the mask and follow the SOPs. So if we can survive, if as many people can survive, then we can look at thriving. And that thriving is a part of the economic part, which we need to discuss as well, because if you can't get through the medical problem, it's very hard to get to the economic problem. The economic problem will actually last longer than the medical problem. This is something that we need to admit. But we now need to see that once you get the medical equation right, you can start to get the economic equation right.
Right. So at this point, when we talk about vaccination, this issue came up this week as well about vaccine booster shots. Is it needed or not? At at the Tropical Infectious Diseases Research and Education Center, they made a statement. They said they're hoping to determine whether booster shots are even needed. But why? Because we have new variants that are emerging, and they're aggressively emerging as well. So overall, the conclusion will be with this research and study is to establish whether booster shots are needed to reduce the severity of infections. Can you tell us a little bit more, Nordin, about what you're seeing in terms of what other countries are saying, or whether even other countries are looking at creating their own brand of vaccine?
Exactly. And I think this is one thing that we have to realize is we are in a live crisis. Everything is about now. So the fact that Malaysia is doing this study and doing this research, and of course, is a highly respected university, this will go into a global data pool. And then we will also be able to pull in that data from the global data pool and make informed decisions. And this is the wonderful thing about data. Data takes away opinion. At the moment, we have a lot of opinions, but what we need to do is get to data-based decisions. And that's the only way. So the fact the government is allocated money for the research shows that they are committed to a data-based solution as opposed to an emotional-based solution or an opinion-based solution. And that really has to be the only way to come out of this.
Okay, so just a quick disclaimer. This research is, if you're wondering, well, is it going to compare the different vaccines? At this point, no. Why? Because limited funding. Cost is always an issue, but I'm sure the center's 1 million funding granted by the United States government will be used accordingly. The research will be kicked off soon. It has been approved by UM's Medical Research Ethics Committee. But from that, Nordin, we move on now. We are in, as we accelerate towards phase 3 and phase 4 in the near future, some non-essential sectors are saying we need to survive. So earlier this week, MEF, the Malaysian Employees Federation, they called on the government to urgently accelerate, and they stress on this word, it's bolded here in my notes, to ensure the survival of businesses, particularly those in the non-essential sectors. These sectors, Nordin, have been closed for a long, long time. You're talking a year and a half, pushing, more than that.
Exactly. Fashion, you see fashion, tourism, and a lot of these other restaurants, a lot of these companies are going to be suffering. They may have some revenue. There are those with zero revenue at the moment as well. So we need to look at if the government continues to give the support with the pemulihan and these kind of backup plans. but the only solution is going to be opening up the economy. So the question now is, how do you open up the economy? You have to do it safely. It's very dangerous to make again emotional decisions when people's lives are at stake. So we need a safe journey to that, and it has to be data driven. So when we continue down this journey, those industries should prepare data-driven solutions for the government. Say, look, we can do this safely because we're doing A, B, C, and D. And we saw that early on with hairdressers and beauty salons. They say, look, these are the 5 SOPs we're going to put in place. It's going to be safe to do it. And I'm actually looking forward to going and getting a haircut. But we need to do it in a safe manner. And I think the other component. Sorry, go ahead, Jessie.
Now, I just want to jump in here with some quick research that the team has done here. 163 million ringgit per day is lost by the textile, fashion, and apparel industries. They contributed in 2019 27 billion in export value towards our GDP. And last year, despite the challenges, 21 billion. Now, since they ceased operations last year, 15% of companies in this sector had to close. And more than 30% are now on the verge of collapse because we have to wait for phase 3. Why? Due to two things: lack of cash flow and an uncertain future. Now, as we talk about SMEs trying to survive, Nordin, we speak about this so much: resilience, thriving, survival. What gives at this point? And also, how can investors help to sort of soften this blow?
Well, at the same time, I want to draw your attention to other parts of the economy that are doing incredibly well. Some companies are raking in record profits at the moment. So we need to say to ourselves, as an SME, perhaps, okay, how do we supply to those sectors of the economy that are doing well? So can we be agile enough during this crisis to shift our focus? If the answer to that question is yes, then shift. The other thing is, if you can't shift, is how are you going to innovate? How are you going to solve problems for your customers during this time? Because people's problems actually have been multiplied, not made smaller. So you need to become more innovative during a crisis to survive. And this is going to be the only way forward.
Okay, is that just mainly in theory? Because what I'm about to tell you now is a bit of a shocker. An expert this week said that there's a projection that 10% of the population would have developed national immunity to the virus after being infected, while another 50% would be protected after being fully vaccinated. Great. That's where we want to get to. But as long as the transmission rates were consistent, a record number of new cases and healthcare utilization, including ICU bed occupancy, all would mirror the trend within 1 to 3 weeks. So you can see that sort of a ripple effect. But COVID-19 cases will stay high until September. You're talking another full month ahead, Nordin. People are on the verge.
I think it's longer than that, Jessie. I know I'm cutting in here, but I think it's going to be longer than that. And I think when we look at the numbers now and the R naught now, it will be September, October, November, December that these numbers will remain high. So now how do we manage in this new reality? We need to look at what's also going on in global best practices. We've seen now a lot of companies, a lot of countries shift from absolute numbers of infected people to the impact on the health resources that we have. So the healthcare sector, can we handle this many cases? So when we look at that, we also look at the National Recovery Plan. We look that is on the third line there is the utilization of those ICU beds and these kind of things. So we've got two options: increase the number of ICU beds, or find a way to bring down those heavy cases. The moment you start to think differently, you may come up with different solutions. And I think that is going to be part of the thinking that industries, whichever industry, needs to come to the table and say, look, this is our solution to the problem. It will have an impact, but the flip side of not doing this, the flip side of not opening up this sector of the economy, is far worse than the medical impact that it will create.
Okay, well, I want to jump in with this as well. A statement was released this week by the Malaysian Association of Theme Park and Family Attractions. They're called MATFA for short. They have made a quote-unquote passionate appeal for the reopening of the industry's core businesses in the next phase, phase 2 of the National Recovery Plan. So this was a letter written to the Prime Minister, and they said that in the current timeline, while we know it's fluid and while we know it's rather flexible, we're trying to accelerate it. They say if we follow the current timeline as of now, we will further break the tourism industry in ways it has already been broken. And I get a little bit of goose pimples when I'm saying that, because Malaysia is a beautiful country and we thrive on tourism. And so 3.6 million workers have been on the verge of losing their income. And so what this association is saying is they're calling for the reopening of theme parks, attractions, cinemas, family entertainment centers, even spa wellness centers, and also including shopping malls, resorts and hotels. So many different sort of players in this sector as well. What are your thoughts on this, Nordin?
Again, when you use the word passionate, and these are emotions, and it's difficult to say this to someone whose business is really on the cusp of this problem. Again, we need to come back with solutions and attend each solution with incredible detail. It's very different, a spa operator to a cinema to a resort. So
but it seems simple. Yeah. They are saying that, well, they suggested to the Prime Minister a vaccination campaign for all tourism-related sectors under the Tourism, Arts and Culture Ministry. So that perhaps is something that also needs to be accelerated or vamped up. We need to see as many sectors as possible.
Exactly, and we will hit these numbers in terms of 100% vaccination in certain areas. So, and for me, I'm a big believer in geographically controlling problems. So if, for example, Perlis and Kedah and Penang, for example, as a northern cluster can be cleared of enough cases, okay, open up that sector. So you solve the problems in those locations in a sustainable manner. So the problems right now we see is in the Klang Valley, the larger numbers in the Klang Valley. So open up other places that are able to open up once it's possible to do so. I know you want me to, I finish quickly, but once it's able to do safely, and this is the thing, you've got to do it. The government has a duty of care to make sure that they protect the citizens, and they've got a duty of care to make sure they protect the economy. So it's a balancing act. Go ahead. Sorry.
Do all the signals because it's behind.
I can hear Biswa in the background.
Camera here, working from home. The teams they're messaging me and they're like, oh, few minutes, and now we have only 1 minute left to talk. I quickly wanted to say this that while we are all staying indoors, it is really hot out there. Malaysia is to experience hotter and drier climate until mid-September, according to the Met Department. And so, remember to, of course, hydrate and just stay indoors and stay safe. But I think hot weather is good. Initially we heard that, for the virus, hot weather is apparently a good thing. But what's happening out there while we are indoors is the Tokyo Olympics, Nordin. That's, being kicked off. US, South Korea have agreed to convince North Korea to return to discuss some other issues, which are some other stories that we'll talk about later. But what are your thoughts on Tokyo Olympics? Have you watched anything? Very quickly, I have only 30
for me, seconds. Great. Olympics need to go ahead. Sport needs to start. Put people in sports bubbles, because people, while they're staying home, love to watch sport. And this is, I think, one key thing that Tokyo is getting right. Yes, there are cases. Yes, they are managing it. But they are creating a global spectacle where people can actually stay home in a very positive way and enjoy the success of athletes who train for 4 to 8 years to bring us gold medals.
Absolutely, that's right. They have trained really hard, and they deserve that shot as well. And of course, the world wants to watch. But we also know that as the arrival of more of these Olympians and athletes, what has happened is they've seen a rise in cases as well. We hope to speak to our national medical team who's based in Tokyo. We hope to get some of their time next week and speak to them to really understand what's going on and how they're keeping our team safe. Nordin, that's all the time on the clock. I guess we will take take our conversation off air for a bit. And yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Have a wonderful next few days. Get as much rest. Remember, we're all stressed out to some extent, but take it easy, relax, and focus on family and loved ones. Remember, kita jaga kita. Call a friend, call a loved one, call a family member you haven't seen in a long time. Check up on them. Well, this is Jessie Chahal signing out. Back to mummy duties for me. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.